911.
I'm sorry, I just want to go.
Hello?
I'm sorry, I just want to see my family.
On January 17th, 2008, Denise was home with the kids while Nathan was out at work. They spoke around 11 a.m. discussing how nice the weather was and that Denise should open the windows so that they could save money and not run the AC. A normal midday convo between husband and wife. But unfortunately, that would be the last time they spoke. Nathan got off work at 3 p.m. He called Denise as he headed home, but she did not answer. That wasn't normal. When he arrived back at the house, his 2 sons were there. They were alone in one crib. Denise would never leave the kids alone. There was no sign of forced entry. Everything looked normal, except for the fact that Denise was gone. Nathan knew something was wrong and at 3:29 called 911 to report Denise missing. He then called Denise's dad, Rick. Rick had also been trying to get a hold of Denise to see if her family wanted to come over that night for dinner. Nathan said, "We can't. Denise is missing." Rick was in disbelief, but acted quickly to convince the Northport police that this was not a domestic issue and that this missing persons report was different and they needed to start searching immediately. Once police arrived at Denise and Nathan's home, they began knocking on neighbors' doors to see if anyone had seen anything. There was one neighbor who happened to step outside and noticed that there was a white male in a dark green Camaro, and he sat in the driveway for about 15 minutes. She went inside her house, and when she went back out 10 minutes later, the car was gone. Denise was abducted from her house in broad daylight. It's now 5 p.m., and even though the neighbor didn't see the abduction take place, she had given the police enough information with the white male and car, and they now had a lead. They sent out a Be on the Lookout or BOLO alert, and all law enforcement along the interstate were now looking. They were stopping anyone who looked even a little suspicious. At 6:14 p.m., a call was placed to 911.
911.
I'm sorry, I just want to go.
Hello?
I'm sorry, I just want to see my family.
Hello? Hello?
I'm sorry.
Hello?
I'm sorry, please let me go.
Lee?
Yeah.
Do you know
I
what
don't
street?
know your phone is.
Your name's Denise Lee? Can you tell at all what street you're on?
No.
Do you know this guy that's with you?
No.
You don't know him from anywhere?
No, please. Oh, God, help me.
What's your address? What's your home address, do you know?
I don't know. Please just take me to my house. Please just take me home. Oh, my God, please.
Can you see or do you have a blindfold on?
I can't see. Where are we?
Can they turn off the radio or turn it down?
I can't hear you. It's too loud. Where are we? Are you gonna help me? Are you gonna let me out now? Oh, please.
It was Denise. She had managed to grab Michael's phone when he had stepped out of the car, called 911, and identified herself to dispatch before Michael was back in the car. Once he was back in the car, she stayed on the phone pretending to talk to him, but she was really answering questions dispatch was asking. About 7 minutes into the call, he realized his phone was missing, and that's when the call abruptly ended. Because the call had gone on for so long and she was able to give so many detailed answers to all the questions asked, surely she would be found in no time. But unfortunately, the phone she had used to call 911 was an inexpensive throwaway. It wasn't equipped with GPS tracking, which is what is used to locate a caller's whereabouts. What police were able to get from that call were pings from the telephone towers, which meant she was still someplace in the area. And they also were able to identify who the number belonged to. Knowing Michael King's name was a major lead, police asked Denise's family if they knew him, but no one had ever heard of him or been in contact with him. At 6:23 p.m., 9 minutes after Denise's call, 911 received another call about Michael King and Denise. This time, the call came from Sabrina Muxlow, the daughter of Michael King's cousin.
Go ahead, caller. Yes, what's the problem? And the girl came out of got out of the car, and my dad's cousin went and put her back in the car. And when she got out,
Okay, where's your dad's house?
it's in Northport.
Where would he be going with this female?
He came over to my dad's house, borrowed a shovel, a gas tank, and something else.
Okay, we've been looking for this female. You are just so wonderful to call us and give us this information. Okay?
Yeah.
By the end of the call between Sabrina and 911, police were able to establish that Denise was just 4 miles away from her home. Police were also able to start painting a better picture of Michael, what he looked like and who he was. Just when Sabrina hung up, another call was placed to 911. Jane Kowalski called at exactly 6:30 p.m. from her cell phone. She was driving on the highway next to Michael and Denise, and she noticed something off and felt it needed to be reported. And this is where it all crumbles. The GPS trackers showed Jane was on the Sarasota County line, which unfortunately routed her call to a different 911 call center.
911, where's your emergency?
I just crossed Chamberlain. I'm on 41 going south. And I was at a stoplight, and a man pulled up next to me, and there was a child screaming in the car. Not a
What
happy.
kind of vehicle was he in?
It's a blue Camaro. He's a white male, sort of light-colored hair, sort of plump. He's behind me now, and I tried to slow down so he could pass me and I could read his license
Okay,
plate.
ma'am, don't hang up, okay?
I'm not. Okay.
Okay, where are you now? 41 South?
Okay. I am, I'm going to pass across the street, and I believe he's still behind me. I'm at Jinx Drive. I'm just crossing it. I'm going very slow, like 35 miles an hour on 41.
And he's behind you?
I believe he's behind me. He has not passed me, and he's going slower than I am, which is not right because we're holding up traffic and stuff. And he's going to turn left on Toledo Blade. He's turning left right now. And I'm in the other lane. And
You're going southbound, and he's turning left onto the Toledo Blade.
Right, and there's a kid in the back seat, and they kept banging on the window.
Went left on Toledo Blade. About how old is this child? Can you tell me?
I did see the child. I'd say less than 10, definitely not an infant, old enough to bang on the window.
Okay, 7 to 10?
I don't know.
So in less than 15 minutes, we've had 3 calls to 911. Police in 3 neighboring counties have a description of not only the car, but of what Michael King looks like, and they even know where his family lives, and yet they haven't located Denise. At 6:44 p.m., police arrived at Michael King's home. They found duct tape with long strands of Denise's hair attached, but what they also found was an empty home. Michael had come and left. At 6:50 p.m., the 4th and final phone call came through to the 911 dispatch. The caller, who tried to remain anonymous, was calling from a payphone. The information he provided was vague, saying only that he saw a man with a woman and that he thought she'd been taken and that she didn't want to be there. He was able to add one new detail about the green Camaro. The car had something called a bra. The dispatcher asked how the caller knew this, and he replied, "I just do." Then the dispatcher asked if the caller had seen them and if the man seemed like he was going to hurt her, and the caller replied, "I don't know." Police were able to figure out pretty quickly that the caller was Harold Muxlow, Sabrina's father and Michael's cousin. When police arrived at Harold's house, Harold provided more information about what he saw. He told police that Michael had arrived at his house at 6 p.m. and took a shovel, a gas can, and a flashlight. Harold watched Michael as he grabbed the stuff from the tool shed and returned to his car. In the car, he saw Denise and Michael struggle for about 30 seconds. She got out of the car and even yelled to call the cops before Michael was able to shove her back inside. When Harold began to walk towards Michael's car, Michael yelled back, "Don't worry about it," and he got in his car and drove off. The interaction that Harold had just witnessed felt odd, but he also knew Michael and thought that potentially this was just another odd relationship Michael was in. Unfortunately, there were no other leads after that call. For 2 hours, searchers were at a loss of where Michael could have taken Denise. But at 9:16 p.m., a state trooper pulled over a 1995 dark green Camaro with a black bra on the front. They finally found Michael's car. He was in the car in the driver's seat, but Denise was nowhere to be found. When Michael stepped out of the vehicle, he was soaking wet from the waist down. He had a muddy shovel and a cell phone with its battery removed. Michael was arrested. He was held in an interrogation room, and just a few hours after he had arrived, police allowed Harold Muxlow in the room to try and get Michael's story. Michael told his cousin that both him and Denise were victims of a kidnapping, that he had tried to call 911, but he couldn't. He also said that he had been blindfolded, so he didn't know where the kidnapper had left Denise. Michael was charged with kidnapping. So the police have the suspect, and they also have records of all these calls from people who saw Michael and Denise, and yet Denise was still missing. For 2 whole days after Michael was arrested, officers and volunteers searched everywhere for Denise in the hopes that they would find her still alive. But a canine unit in a marshy field found a shallow grave just half a mile from where Michael was arrested, and there lay Denise. She had been shot in the head. Michael King had no criminal history. He had spent the morning of January 17th at a shooting range, but besides a few complaints from past neighbors about pranks Michael had played, no one could find the connection between Michael leaving that shooting range and how he could have possibly ended up at Denise Amber Lee's home. After Michael was caught and this story and his picture were all over the news, Jane recognized the man that was arrested and decided to call the Northport dispatcher back. She said, "I'm the one who called in. Do you need any more information from me?" And the dispatcher didn't know who she was. They had no records of her call because her call didn't go to Northport. It went to the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office. The call Jane had made to 911 while driving next to Michael and Denise with their exact whereabouts was never forwarded to the Northport police. The dispatcher just never sent it. And it was another 2 days later with Jane calling back that Northport was even able to locate the call records. What was later discovered was that the woman who received Jane's call didn't type it into the database, the one that goes out to the police and deputies. So many stories later came out of deputies stationed within the vicinity or at the exact location at the exact time of the 911 call Jane made when driving next to Michael King. And that night, there were so many people trying to find Denise that it had created chaos. And that's how the ball was dropped. Denise did everything she could to fight for her life. Besides the calls and the consistent screaming for help, she left clues at every step of the way during that horrific journey. Strands of hair torn out by the roots that she had stuffed under the back seats. Also found in the back seat of the car was the heart-shaped ring that Nathan had given to her on their first Valentine's Day, deliberately left behind to let investigators know she had been there. Michael King pleaded not guilty to his charges, but was convicted of kidnapping, murder, and involuntary sexual battery. The defense had his brother testify about a head injury Michael had as a young child, and also that his mental health took a toll towards the end of 2007 because he was facing foreclosure and was going through a breakup with a girlfriend. But the evidence against Michael was too strong, and he was sentenced to death. As per prison records, he is on death row at the Union Correctional Institution in Rayford, Florida. The one good thing that has come from this is the foundation that was set up in Denise's name. Her husband, Nathan, set up the foundation seeking changes to the 911 system that had failed his wife in 2008. The foundation website states, "The foundation is here so no other person, family, or community has to endure the pure hell of a similar event, and that no other children have to endure a lifetime without the comfort and guidance of their loving mother. We envision a time when a citizen's first call for help will be answered by a state-of-the-art 911 call center staffed with dedicated and highly trained professionals, a time when 911 will fail no one. And that is the absolutely tragic story of Denise Amber Lee and Michael King. This one hit me hard. Just knowing she didn't let the fear of it all stop her and seeing all the ways she tried to stay alive, it just breaks my heart. What do you think about this case? Let us know in the comments down below. I'm Brandi. Thanks for watching Killer Bites.